Etsy launches an SEO little test that they are going to be experimenting with select sellers. They're going to be taking your title and they're going to be tweaking it without you even knowing it. Should we let them do that? Is this going to be good? Is this going to hurt us? Is this going to help us? You would think it's going to help us. Well, Chris, I know that there's an article that was published on it, and I want to dig in and hear the nitty gritty here. Is this going to be even beneficial? Is this going to be a disaster? And I'd like to know your thought, Chris, the SEO nerd that you are.
So this is something that popped up over the weekend. I started seeing some people talking about it inside of the Etsy seller forum on Thursday, I think is the first time I saw the post. And then our friends over at Auction Bytes, which is part of the e-commerce Bytes website, posted this article. They kind of correlated and organized some of the thoughts from people. Basically what's happening, Scott, is Etsy, at least for now, was telling people that they were opting them into this. And that they're allowing them to add in an optional test from April through July. So if you didn't get an email or a notification about this, then you're probably not involved in this test. Unlike one of the other ones that they rolled out last week where the images on the search page, you could like scroll through. That kind of disappeared on me, I think this morning as of the time of recording this, but who knows if that'll be back. This one, they reached specifically out to invite sellers into the test. And what they're saying is they're going to run a test where their AI takes your title and will rewrite certain parts of it to optimize the listing for shoppers to see you and your ads. They're going to be making tweaks to a few different things, and they specifically call them tweaks. So they're implying that they're not rewriting the entire thing, but they're saying, hey, you know, we're going to remove some typos, anything that's redundant, which you shouldn't be including anyway, at least if you read through their documentation or listen to any of our rants on SEO, you don't need to. And they're going to kind of reorganize that. And if we scroll down a little bit here, they get a little bit further into some of the examples, which are, we might add gift for her at the end of the title if we think that it's appropriate, or we might move some of the promotional things or unnecessary adjectives, repetitive things to simplify the title to make it more human readable so that it ranks higher in offsite channels. Now, obviously, Scott, this is starting as a small beta test, but would you feel comfortable letting Etsy come in and play with your title?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I'm curious also, we had Art by Flynn post in the comments that they got invited to this. And I'm just curious, Art by Flynn, if you can in the comments, let us know how you were invited. Was it an email? Was it a direct message? I'm just curious. I have not been yet invited. But if you would let us know that in the comments, then that would be helpful for anyone else. But I would say, I mean, Chris, I personally think yes, like it would be great because I'm like, well, I mean, let's face it, Etsy's going to do what's best for Etsy. But then in the same breath, I'm like, it's probably their AI. And do I trust their AI after the mock-up disaster that happened? I'm not quite sure. So I think right now, I probably personally would not let them, especially on a product that's doing well, because I don't want to disrupt that. And I have a feeling that even though they're saying like, well, we're going to do what's best, who's to say that the algorithm is going to jive with it? I don't know. There's a lot of unknowns there. I think I'd rather have other people test it and then let me know how it works.
Yeah, the question in my mind would be, how much is a tweak? Right? If all we're doing is getting rid of some of the redundancy that doesn't need to be there, and the algorithm saying, hey, I don't need you to say blanket and comforter and fuzzy thing to keep you warm in the title. I'm just going to simplify it to blanket because the algorithm understands that. People searching for it, even if they search for comforter, will probably understand that. And the conversion data supports it, then great. But what I would like to see is a suggestion. And Scott, you may remember a few months ago, they started really giving the tag suggestions for tags you could add. That approach I like, where they're saying, hey, look, here's your title. Here's what we suggest. And then here's what we think might be the lift from that. And that's something that Amazon has started to do really well. They say, hey, if you increase your ads budget by this, here's based on your data, what we expect your sales lift to be. If we saw something like that, where they're saying, hey, if you let us rewrite your title this way, one, you still have the choice, but they're still making the recommendation. Two, they show you the data that supports it. And they don't have to show you the algorithm or bare the soul of the algorithm to you to be able to do that. They're saying, hey, look, if we add gift for her based on your conversion rate and the number of views we think that will add, here's the sales increase that you might see. And then give me a button to change it. I can always change it back. But if it's just changing it in the background and it doesn't actually change it on the listing itself, then I feel like I've lost control over that, especially if it's a well-selling product. If it's a product I'm struggling with, they can play with the title all they want. But if it's not, I would still want to have the manual control. And I think they can do that in a seller-friendly way by doing what I just said, which is here's the ideal way to rewrite this based on your listing. Click the button to accept it. And then 3 months go by and they say, hey, we figured out this is what is now optimal. Do you want to change it? Click the button and go from there. Now, at scale, that becomes a little bit of a pain in the butt. But if they send you, a weekly roundup or give you a little place in the dashboard to go through your titles, they could make that a little bit easier. You get all the benefits of the AI and it stays seller friendly. Would you be more open to that as an option where you're just saying, yeah, do it?
Yeah, of course. I think it's kind of like right now, even with like YouTube, I believe they have it rolled out to most YouTube channels where it will give you suggestions for titles that you can rewrite it using AI. And I know that there's plugins now that have already done that for a little while, like vidIQ and things like that. We're talking YouTube, but I would like something like that. I would like it to give me a suggestion like it did with the tags. And then I can say to approve it or not, versus them just running random tests on switching stuff in and out and me not knowing about it. I do think that for a new shop, it's probably okay, but I'd say for a seasoned account that has a really good listing or a really good product and you don't want to mess with it, you should have the option to not let it be, run through the test. Maybe that's the other thing. Maybe you can select the ones that you're okay with them testing, new titles. And then maybe they give you some type of analytics that say, when you had it like this, it did this. When you had it like this, it did this. Now we're talking, but we're also talking about Etsy here. They're a little bit behind on their stuff. I just want to be honest. They're a little behind on some of their features. So I'm not quite sure that that's actually going to happen, but if they're just going to randomly switch up whatever they think, I'm not a fan of that. Suzanne says, nope, don't do it. Last time I was invited into an Etsy beta test, it tanked my shop. I'm a long-time 1% seller. So yeah, I wouldn't want to monkey with it either if there's an issue there.
Well, that's Elysian said, they run dozens of tests every quarter, and they do. Some of them are opt-in, some of them are site-wide, like the image one that we were talking about, but they keep what works, right? Like Etsy's always going to do what's best for Etsy. And if this is something that works, then they may just roll it out and not tell anybody. So by talking about it, hopefully we put some feelers out into the ether to say, hey, even if this is the ideal way of doing this and you see a lift, don't just go rewrite people's titles, give them that option or show them the reason why they should change it. And Scott, I like the thing that you just pointed out a lot, which is give us the opt-in, just like with Etsy ads, with the exception of the offsite stuff. We opt in for which listings we want to be included in Etsy ads. Give me the opt-in, and anybody that's been in on this beta, let us know if that's how it worked. Art may have some insight into that, where I'm like, okay, these 3 or 4 are struggling. Go play with these. But I'd still want to, at the end of the day, have the control of the push button to say, all right, if you're sure that one's better, change it on the listing and then be done with it. I wouldn't want that constantly being tweaked, whatever Etsy is calling it a tweak.
Yeah. Yeah. I would be curious too. In the comments, let us know, would you let them run wild and just do tests on your behalf without letting you know? Or would you rather them not do that? Or do you have any other ideas on how they could run these tests to help us Etsy sellers have better SEO?